everybody hear that, or try putting it on the speaker? What's that?
Speakers might help.
Yeah. Bruno, can you say something?
Yes. Okay. Can you guys hear me fine? Okay. So I'll assume that you're hearing me fine, and I'll just start. So hi everyone. My name is Bruno Souza, and I'm one of the founders of Sou Java. It's a Java User Society. It's a large Java user group in Brazil. And I was also was the first individual to join the JCP when the JCP opened up for individuals' participation. And rumor has that I was the only individual that ever paid to join the JCP. Everyone else got for free, and I was the guy that paid $100 when he did cost $100. And later on, so Java joined the JCP, was the first Java user group to join the JCP, and kind of set the stage and open up and help organize things so other user groups could join in later. And then a couple of years ago, So Java was voted on the executive committee of the JCP, and I'm the representative of So Java there. So I've been working with the JCP for a long, long time. Before the JCP even existed, when I was working for Sun, I helped out Sun when Sun proposed to ISO to standardize Java to the ISO standards. And so I was the guy that represented Sun here in Brazil and on the ISO discussions and meetings and everything. So I've been working with standardizing and standards of Java for a long time. And I think that this is a very, very good moment, a very important moment for Java technology and for the JCP and the standardization efforts. So I think the idea that we had here is give you guys a brief, really, really brief overview of the JCP. I think a lot of you have heard of the JCP and know more or less what the JCP is, so I'm not going to go very deep into this. But what I wanted to do is have some times to hear what questions you have, and talk a little bit about what are the opportunities for communities to participate in the JCP. So I'm just gonna quickly do a very quick presentation here, just so we can set the stage a little bit. And hopefully you guys can see this. Can you guys see my screen fine?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So so you all know that Java is it's a very important technology. I think you guys are here in the Connecticut JUG for a reason, because you believe in the technology, but not only believe in terms of I love Java for just because I love Java, but you all are here because you've had a lot of investment on the Java technology. You created products, you created APIs, you trained your employees. You had a lot of investment through many years on the Java technology. And when you talk about Java, it is a big ecosystem. So this here is just the things that you guys use on your daily basis, just what's on the JDK, and it's a whole lot of stuff that is there. So Java is very, very big. It's not it's when we just say Java, it can mean so many different things. It's a language, it's an API, it's a platform, it's it's a standard. So it's so many different things, and there's a whole lot of investment from companies, from developers, from Oracle, Sun, and IBM, and everyone for so many years. But for all the Java user groups, you guys, for example, have been spending your own personal time creating the user group and making sure that and creating doing events and all of that. So there's a whole lot of investment around this technology. And at the heart of this whole investment, it is what we call the JCP, the Java Community Process. So the JCP is basically the standard setting environment and organization that defines what Java really is. When we talk about a standard, basically a standard is it's a piece of paper, right? So we developers were very used about having an SDK, having some code that we can run, have software that we can use, but basically a standard is not necessarily software. It's a piece of paper that lots of people come on and agree what it means and what it should do, and then people can get that standard and implement in different ways. The problem with when you do standards like this, that it's just a piece of paper, is that you know, paper accepts anything, right? So you can put anything you want on the piece of paper, and that means that you know, you could potentially put on so you could potentially put on this piece of paper you know, things that don't work, right? Things that that has nothing in it, right? And if that happens, that means a lot of people will have to implement that piece of paper that really doesn't have any value for you guys as developers. And so to prevent that, when the JCP was created, it had the idea that you can't have a standard that you don't put a reference implementation on it. So you can't have a standard that there's not code running and supporting that standard. So that's why when we talk about the JCP, we don't only talk about the standards, the specifications. We talk about the specifications plus the RI, the reference implementation. The reference implementation is source code. I mean, it's code. It doesn't need to be source. You know, it's in the past you could have an RI that was just binary. But today, the rules of the JCP, you know, we're part of the change of the rules of the JCP. So everyone has to provide an open source implementation of the specifications. So you have an reference implementation. The reference implementation is the standard working. Is a product that actually runs and implements the standard. So how do you know if that product really implements the standard? Or if someone else creates another implementation, how do you know if the other implementation is compatible with the first one that was called the reference implementation? This is very important because a lot of the standards out there, you do have you know, this piece of paper, you do have someone provides a reference implementation, but the reference implementation doesn't really implement the standard. It means that whoever is the owner of the reference implementation has a big advantage to everyone else because you can't really verify the compatibility, and there's a whole lot of standards that are like this out there. And to prevent that from happening, to prevent you know, you having multiple implementations that would not work together, when the JCP was created, it was also created the notion of the TCK, the compatibility test, right? And the compatibility test is a set of tests, right? You know, JUnit test, like you guys probably know very well. It's a set of tests that tests the specification. So the tests are reaching from the specification point of view, and the test the reference implementation. So we have this triangle, you know, that is the specification there is developed inside the JCP process, plus a reference implementation that is developed as an open source product, or you know, an open source project that implements the specification, and then a set of tests that are reaching from the specification and then test the reference implementation. So these three things is what makes the JCP so powerful. It's what makes every piece of the Java technology re-implementable by someone else, and that's what's the most important part of this is that it creates competition, right? So we have Java virtual machines from Oracle, you know, from IBM, from so many other vendors. You know, Azul has their own Java VM, and we also have every single piece of the Java platform is implemented by multiple vendors. this is very important in certain areas. We see the value very well, right? For example, when you're writing an application that accesses a database, right? Because you have multiple different drivers that can access the database, and all those drivers are compatible to each other because the JDBC is a spec in the JCP. Then we all know that any database that comes around will be able to implement their own JDBC part, and any application can access that application, that database. We also have application servers, another place where we all understand very well the value of this competition. There's other areas that's not so, it's not so clear, right? Most of us don't use several different VMs, right? So sometimes most people actually in the world use Oracle's VM. So although there is a very fierce competition on the Java VM space, IBM has their own implementation. We had even now with OpenJDK, we have several implementations of OpenJDK. So even though we have that, for the developer, that's not so easily seen. There's some other areas that really we don't have any other implementation. So if you get Swing, for example, Swing, the UI for Java desktop applications, there is just one implementation basically of Swing. That we all know of. That's implementation that came from Sun and Oracle, and everyone else just kind of reuses that same implementation. But from time to time, we do see some clever use of those implementations in different places. But even though sometimes we don't see the value immediately, it's all of this is specified. All of these has a reference implementation, has a spec, has a set of tests, and that's what guarantees compatibility of the Java technology. So every time we talk about JCP, it may seem this faraway thing that doesn't touch very well our day-to-day activities, but really the JCP impacts everything that we do in the Java space. So everything that you as a developer is working on, the JCP touches it in some way. And it's important for us because as developers, we need to be able to reach out to different vendors and be able to understand that whatever we are doing is not tied to anyone. Okay, Oracle is extremely big, but for a long time, Sun was this small company in the middle of this really big players like Oracle, IBM, and others. And even then, we could trust the Java technology because even if Sun had some problems that it eventually did have, we would still have an open standard. We would still have the open source implementation in the case of OpenJDK. So this whole process, it's very important for us as developers because we can all make sure that Java that Java will be there in the future whenever we need it. So we can invest, we can put all this effort, we can train our people, we can create our framework, products, everything, without being worried that the technology will simply disappear tomorrow. There's lots of vendors that can guarantee that the technology will stay around for a long time. But this is just a part of it, right? Because the other thing is, we all want the technology to evolve, right? We all have our own problems. We all have our own necessities in our different things that we are doing, and we want the technology to evolve. So if you want the technology to evolve, we need to be able to participate on that evolution. And being able to participate doesn't mean that each one of us need to participate. That's the nice thing about being able to participate, is that if everyone is able to participate, then if a few of us do participate, everyone else can just watch, right? What may not seem, very fair to the people that are participating, but that's the reality, right? The more people that can participate, the more of of the more companies and developers and individuals and user groups that will actually want to participate. So although we have today, they say like 9 million Java developers, we have around 800 developers on the JCP. It's a very, very small number compared to the whole Java ecosystem. But this small number, it's still gives a guarantee to all of us that there are people watching, that there are people looking at what's going on. And because the process is open, because the process is there and available to anyone to participate, so anyone here, all your companies, you as a developer, everyone can participate in the process, and you can be part of the future of the technology. And sometimes you can say, but I'm a user. I develop the code. I don't care about specifications too much. I don't even know enough to discuss those things. And that's what we as developers, a lot of times we think like this. I just don't know enough, or this is too complex for me, or there's people better than me to participate. Many times we think this, but the truth is, each one of us have some knowledge and have some understanding of the things that we're doing. So you know exactly what you're doing. You know where the things that you're doing, where things are easy, where they're hard, and many times you may not know how to fix a problem, but you definitely know that there is a problem. So just by if the JCP is a very open process and anyone can participate, so we can all come on board and say, I don't like this, or I think this should be better, or I have no idea why this is so complicated, but I know it is complicated. And then we can influence the process. The more of us that participate on this, the more of us that can influence the process. And just kind of giving a little bit more insight here on the process itself. It's a Java community process, right? So it is a process. So basically, the JCP has all these steps that you can see here, and it's those steps are basically the steps that every specification needs to go through. The important part of this is that, sorry.
We're just seeing a picture of you right now. Are you trying to share a slide?
Oh, okay. So, yeah, so that's what I asked you before. So you're not actually seeing the slides.
Right.
No.
Okay. How about now? Do you see like this? Nope. Okay, so if the slides are not working, let me see.
They were here before.
Yeah, they were here. Yeah, they were here briefly.
What?
They were there briefly, then they disappear and it goes back to you.
Oh, okay. All right. So let me go back here.
Yep.
Okay, can you see this at least?
Yes, we can see that. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So yeah. So maybe when I put it on full screen, it didn't work. So I'm just gonna keep working like this. So basically, this is the process. When you talk about the JCP is a process, right? So it is a set of steps that we need to go through to make sure that that we have the correct specification. And the important thing is that once the specification starts, right, it goes through what we call the early draft process, where it's put out there. It's open for anyone to participate. You can comment on the specification when when the first draft comes out. And after that, we have the public review process. And so basically, the group of people that are preparing this specification, it's what we call the expert group. This group of people, they basically write the first draft. Anyone can comment the first draft. They go back, they discuss, they improve the first draft, and then they publish a public review. The public review process is a multi-step process. An expert group can publish several public review process. In the past, the public review was the only time where anyone could participate. You as a JCP member, you could participate since the early draft. and then the public review was when anyone, even those that are not JCP members, could come and participate. But one of the things that SoJava and the London Java community, the first two Java user groups that joined the executive committee, we participated heavily on the transparency changes on the JCP. So since last year, the whole JCP process was changed to be more transparent, more inclusive. So both the early draft and the public review, everything happens publicly now. There's nothing that happens behind doors. All of the discussions of the expert groups happen on an open mail list that anyone can watch, right? So, but every time the expert group publishes a public review, you can go there and you can comment and you can create issues. All the issues, I'm going to show this in a minute, but all the issues are public also, so you can go and create issues. You can say, I'm reading this specification that you guys are trying to write, and I don't understand this part, or I think this should be different, or I've been using this other stuff here to solve that problem, and I think that other stuff is easier. So you can participate even if you're not a member of the JCP. You can go and you can create issues on the specification. Once the specification is a little bit, it's mostly done, right? It might have gone through several public reviews. Then eventually, the expert group will publish a proposed final draft, and the proposed final draft goes through a final approval ballot. Basically, the executive committee votes and approves or doesn't approve this particular GSR. Once that happens, then it's a multi-month process, as you can see here. Even if you decide to do this very, very fast, it's still going to take you 3 to 4 months at least for you to go through all the process. But usually, specification takes a lot longer. But basically, it gives everyone in the industry, developers, companies, Java user groups, everyone can actually have a chance to comment on that specification. Why? Because once the specification is approved, it will get on the hands of everyone, right? So we need to be careful that those things happen. And the other thing about the Java community process is that is community, right? So I'm showing here. There's 3 Java user groups. They're part of the executive committee of the JCP, but really, if you take a look, and just get a browser here. I think it's better to show the browser this. But if you take a look at the JCP website, oops, I shouldn't have done that. I think I shared the screen I'm showing now. Okay, let me just get another browser window here. So if you get, if you get the list of Java user groups that are part of the JCP today, right? As you can see here, there's a long list of Java user groups, including you guys, right? The Connecticut Java user group is here. So there is a lot of Java user groups that are involved on the JCP, and those Java user groups are doing a program that SoJava and the London Java community created last year. That is called Adopt a JSR, Adopt a Java Specification. Basically, every Java user group in this list is watching what's going on the JCP, is watching the specifications that are going on, and are reporting back to their members, to companies that participate in their user group, to people in their cities, what's going on in the JCP. So this all helps out, having lots of people watching what's going on. Helps out on the transparency of the JCP. Helps out making sure that the JCP is actually formed by a community and not just by a bunch of vendors trying to push down their own agendas. And I think this is the very, very important part, because once we have a specification that is being watched by so many developers, by so many people participating, then we can guarantee that it's actually at least going to wherever we think it should be going. And I think we all should participate on this, right? Even if you don't think that you're so knowledgeable, but I'm sure that if you read the specification, you find out that things are easier or harder than and you can comment on things. And when you mean comment on things, this is another thing that's nice to show, is that the specification is really completely open. If you go here, let's see, for example, I got here the lambda expression for Java, right? That's a specification that's finished. So if you take a look here on the page of the specification, of the lambda specification, you can see that on the page it has the issue tracking. So you can actually come here to that issue tracker, not to lambda anymore, because lambda is final now, and so it only it's only going to make sense to participate on it whenever it's open for maintenance in sometime in the future. But every specification has an issue tracking that's public, and has a mailing list that's public, so you can actually watch out what's going on. So if you see here on the lambda specification, it had 3 early draft reviews, right? So it actually did several early draft reviews, just one public review, right? So basically, the specification was published very, very early, and since November of 2011, people can actually come in and comment and discuss that specification. So you can see that Lambda took quite some time to actually come to a conclusion. But if you take a look here at another specification, what is going on right now? So right now we're discussing something that has a lot to do with everyone here right now, because we are broadening the JCP membership. There is a process, so the JCP evolves through its own process. So every time that we try to change something on the JCP process itself, it goes through the same process everyone else does. So right now, we have just started, right, this specification, JSR 364, that's discussing how we can make it easier for more people to participate in the process. So that discussion talks about how Java user groups can participate better, how individuals can join in an easier way. And if you come here, you can actually browse all the issues that are going on right now so here is the JIRA for this specification, right? So you guys can come here and see everything. So there's discussion from Patrick, from Heather. You can actually come here and see everything that's going on that specification, right? And you can come here and read each part of the specification, and you can see. So, for example, here's a suggestion to remove a session of the JSPA. That's from the process. Sorry, from the process document. There's a document that defines the JCP process. So, you can come here and you can comment and you can say things like, for example, there is discussion about Java user groups. So we are proposing a better way for Java user groups to participate. And you guys are here at Java user group, so you can come here and say, look, I think my Java user group would be better to participate in a different way than you're proposing, or I agree with the thing that you're proposing, but should go further. You should do less than you are proposing. I don't know. The important thing is that we all can participate. We all can really make this our process, right? We can all make sure that Java is going to wherever we think it should be going. And one of the things that the Java user groups that are participating in the JCP right now tried to do was we all tried to do to make this very, very easy. So we're working on the transparency of the JCP, made everything in the JCP public and open source and reference implementation and everything. And we also made very easy for JavaScript groups to participate. JavaScript groups can participate for free. We're making it even easier now, and I think this we all should take the opportunity to see what are the things that we should do. And I know that this kind of sounds kind of not very concrete, so I'm going to try to give some concrete ideas. One of the specifications that has just you know, maybe a lot of you have already tried, and there's a talk right now about Java 8. So I'm sure Ryan talked to you guys about the dating time API. So the dating time API is a specification that just made the latest version of Java. And before that, I'm sure everyone here in this room had to do some kind of application that had to deal somehow with some dates, and you know, dates or some time or something. And I'm sure when you did this, you just hated the way it was, right? The date and time things that there was in Java before was very outdated, was you know, had lots of different problems, and I'm sure that if you had to do just small things like create a date, and you know, the thing that you had to do is very small, it didn't matter too much. But if you had to do something more sophisticated, if you had to do something that required you know, some more treatment of dating time, I'm sure you had to either develop your own classes, or you looked for an open source library that you could incorporate. So there's a big chance that you tried JOTA-time. There was an open source library that solved a lot of the problem of dating time API. The previous dating time that we had in Java. So once you start doing this, and JOTA-time was not the only library out there. There's lots of different libraries that try to fix these problems for Java. Some were internally done, some were open source projects, some you know, maybe you acquired a library from a proprietary vendor, for example. So every time you do this, you are you now can comment on the discussions. You can say Java needs to improve that part because I know it's hard. I had to buy or I had to download something else to fix this. So I'm sure Java needs to improve this. And that's exactly what happened. So Stephen Colborn from JOTA-time, he proposed to include JOTA-time into Java. But it wasn't JOTA-time. It was a whole discussion. There's several years. There was discussing things that JOTA-time had to do better. Their other APIs were doing better and were incorporated into that specification. And if you think about another interesting application that a lot of us had to do something about, you know, in Brazil, for example, we had a lot of usage of Java inside banks. So IBM proposed a few years ago, the batch API, right? So you can, you know, banks and anyone that has mainframes have to do like this, you know, those batch jobs to send to mainframes or to other legacy systems. And so IBM proposed a batch API. And, you know, before that API existed, I'm sure you guys had to do batch somehow in your application, and you find out some open source library or you wrote something in-house to solve that problem. So as you can see, there's a lot of problems that we have to deal with, and we know how to say this is not working. We need something better. And when IBM proposes their new batch API, for example, you can go and take a look and say, this is not going to work for me, right? Or, yes, this solves all my problems. And this feedback is already important. That's why we made a big effort to open up the JCP, to make the JCP more transparent, to make it easier for anyone to participate. So, and then one question that we always hear is that, so, you know, Bruno is here talking about this multi-year efforts to improve Java, improve the JCP, right? Who cares about this multi-year thing, right? There's open source is so much faster. You know, it took several years for JOTA-time to be incorporated in Java. Why is that important? You know, we could just use JOTA-time for years, and that's true. And another good example was Hibernate. for a long, long time, Hibernate was the default way to do, it was an open source project to do object to relation database mapping, and it was basically the default way that everyone used it to do database mapping. And it took years for something like Hibernate to show up in Java EE as a standard when was created through the JCP, the JPA, the Java Persistence Architecture. And you can say, well, I was using Hibernate way before. Why should I wait for the JPA? The whole idea is not for you to wait for the JPA. The whole idea is that whenever some innovation shows up, for example, Hibernate, then a lot of people can use that, and we can all test to see if that actually works for everyone. And then the whole idea of the standardization process is that we can get all of these ideas, all of the open source projects, all of the proprietary products, all of these, and we can combine into a better specification for everyone. So, for example, Hibernate was not the only object-relational mapping solution that we had. Right? There's many others. Oracle had a great solution that was, in some ways better than Hibernate, but it cost a fortune. So JPA is not only Hibernate; it's Hibernate plus, what Oracle brought in, or IBM brought in, with other developers brought in, and the whole process made Hibernate better, but also made everyone else's product better, right? Oracle eventually open sourced their own solution, and it's now part of Glassfish, and it's part of the Java EE refs implementation. But basically, we have in JPA, we have a better specification than if it was just Hibernate, because just Hibernate, it's one product from, it's an open source project, that's fine, but it's just one implementation. Now, with JPA, you have multiple implementation from multiple vendors, and then all those vendors can compete for who has the best implementation, who has the cheapest, the fastest, etc. Right? Or the more supported, or whatever. The whole idea is that once we have a competition, we can decide what is important on a product, and we can choose that product. So basically, the JCP is this process that helps us out in figure out things that exists, right? Either in open source projects or in proprietary projects that should be standardized, so we can have more competition around the Java ecosystem, so we can have more freedom for developers to choose their vendors, and then we can bring all of those players together, everyone that's solving that problem, together with you, because you are also solving those problems in your own way, right? And we can bring vendors, developers, Java user groups, foundations like Eclipse, for example. We can bring all of them together and discuss a better specification that everyone can then go on and implement, right? And I think that's with the new rules of transparency, it's very, very easy for everyone to participate. With the new rules that we are putting right now about increasing individual participation on the JCP, it's going to be even easier for you to join as part of the JCP. It's going to be easier for your company to join, because we're also making it easier for companies to join too. And so I think that's right now, we just had Java 8 coming out. It was a very, very important release. It was the first release that happened with merging everything into one thing, right? So Java 8, Java SC, Java ME, and Java EE being more together. So Java 9, we're going to be more conversions still, and the JCP is very well posed to help this whole process going forward. And and I hope that we're able to make very easy so you can participate also, that you can do activities. And I think I've talked too much already, and I think I'm going to let you guys ask questions.
Any questions? So has everybody checked out the jcp.org website at some point?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks, Bruno.
Any recommendations what currently is hot there to participate?
Okay, I didn't hear that. Any recommendation for what?
Any recommendation for particular attention currently at JCP? Any specification that is most desirable or most
What's hot?
critical?
What's hot? What are some of the new hot and exciting JSRs?
Oh, for people to participate?
Yeah.
Yeah, something like.
So one JSR that I think it would be very interesting for you guys to, if you're interested in coming in, start to participate in JCP and getting a feeling, the things that can be done, everything. I think the specification that we're doing right now about the membership, it's a very good one for you to participate because it's an easy one. It's very obvious. It deals with with all of us, right? Because it's exactly about participation. It has just been approved, so the discussions are basically just happening. So you can catch up really quick, and so I think that could be a good one for Connecticut JUG, for example, to participate and discuss internally and propose ideas. Because it's an easy one to participate. Now, besides that, there is basically one of the things that happened is that right now we just finished a lot of the important specifications, right? Java ST8, Java ME, right? CLDC. So all of those specifications have just finished in the last few months. Now, the ones that are going on right now that I think are easy to participate and I think are pretty interesting. First of all, it's Money JSR. So Money is another of those things that absolutely everyone kind of needs it in your application. So at some point or another, you have to deal with money. And so Goldman Sachs is the organization that is working, is the spec lead of the Money JSR, and I think that having a standard way of dealing with money, it's an interesting thing, and for at least for us here, we have a lot of banks using Java, as I said. Not only this, I was part, for example, of the income tax application here in Brazil. And the income tax application actually you have to submit today. Today was the last day that people had to submit their income tax using this application, and it was expected to have 15 million people sending their their income tax until today. And it's a Java application, Java desktop application. It has to do a lot of money, right? So I think these are good examples of it's at least is one good example of an application that requires a lot of money. So at least Java is taking a good look at the money API that's going on right now. Another one that has just been announced, it just passed the initial vote a couple of weeks ago. That I think is also one that all of us kind of relate somehow, is the units API. So units in measurement. You all know that any application that has to deal with any unit, right? Either real or not real units, right? So we had a talk with the spec lead last week, and we're showing him this video about lots of very weird measurement units that exist out there, and all of those can be supported by the units API. So if you're doing anything that has any physics in it, it could be a game, for example, that you have to simulate gravity or simulate distance or anything like that, or like a real application or anything related to IoT, Internet of Things, right? So every time you talk about Internet of Things, you're talking about sensors and interacting with the real world. So I'm sure your application will have to have some measurements in it. So there is an API right now. There's a discussion right now about an API to standardize how to deal with units in the JCP. So I think those GSRs are some easy ones because they're just started, right? The unit API just started last week, a couple of weeks ago. The membership API also, it's very recent, was approved last week. And the money GSR has been around for a few months, but even then, it's still pretty new. So I think those three are good ones for you to take a look and start to participate.
Any other questions? Okay, if not, I'd like to thank you, Bruno, for the presentation.
Yeah, so just one more thing then. So one thing that could be very interesting for you, you guys are here. I know that talking about the JCP specs, oh man, it hurts my head, right? It's not fun. There's basically reading a specification. It's definitely not fun. This whole process, the whole thing about standards, it's not a very fun thing. But we can make it fun if that's something important for us. So, for example, if you guys have some interest in the money GSR, for example, you can do a hackathon to discuss that specification, to try to solve money problems with the existing open source projects that solve money problems. See which one works, which one doesn't work. Take a look at the specification and try to implement your application on the specification as a hackathon, right? So I think this is one very, very important step that Java user groups can do to participate and help the evolution of Java, is actually make this dry, uncool, unfun thing there is discussing specification into a much more hands-on, fun stuff that actually solves a specific problem. Because if you do a hackathon on solving how to deal with money in your user group, and a bunch of guys from banks, from the government, from other applications, from finance applications, etc., come to participate and do this discussion, you can do a hackathon that's extremely fun, that's extremely hands-on, and whatever feedback that you get out of this, oh, I like this open source implementation, I don't like this other open source implementation, I tried to read the specification to see if we could use the specification or the RI that is on the GSR, and that worked or didn't work. Any feedback to the spec lead would be very welcome and will be very important for that specification to actually meet your needs whenever that happens. So I think there is a big opportunity for us us as user groups make this whole process a lot more fun than it is normally.
Thanks, Bruno. And if anybody has any questions afterwards, we can send them, I'll forward them on to Bruno. So thanks.
Yes.
And don't forget to get your parking validated before you head down to the garage. And I'll disconnect the Google Talk, the Hangout now. Bruno?
Okay, guys. Thanks very much. Thanks a lot for the opportunity. See ya.
Yep.
Thanks, Bruno.